Hollywood may be the home to movies, but in the 70s, Australia was the home of bold cinema. Mad Max, Wake in Fright, Next of Kin. The films released in this decade spawned the birth of what was called the Australian New Wave, and it led to even bigger things later on, like Crocodile Dundee, Muriel's Wedding, and The Castle. For a country that gave birth to the first movie ever made, this was a time when Australian filmmakers were hitting nothing but net. But since the dawn of the new millennia, something changed. Ever since the 2000s, the Australian film industry has seen a steep decline at the box office, and it feels like the period of great Australian movies of the past no longer seem to be a thing of the present. So, is Australia making less films? Well, no. And actually, it's quite the opposite. The Australian government has seen both more films made and more projects funded, but worse than that, Australian films are also the most marketed and promoted across all platforms when doing so. So what could explain the sharp decline? Maybe it's something that can't really be measured. Risk, or rather, lack of it. While there are many other factors that can contribute, in my view, the lack of risk in any medium is often what produces not bad projects, but almost always average ones. And that's the issue. Because if I was to describe most Australian movies today, I would say that most of them are just safe. They don't offend anyone, they don't do anything controversial, they don't take huge risks. Now let me add that not all modern Australian films are like this, and I don't want this video to be me whinging about movies today which can never live up to the past while giving you remember berries.
Remember Alex? Remember?
Oh, they're adorable.
For what it's worth, I still enjoy Australian films released today, and there's been some great ones like Hounds of Love, These Final Hours, and Wolf Creek. But for the most part, the films that have come out in the last few years or so all fall under this umbrella of being a safe bet. And that could be the problem. Because when you're being safe, you're also not standing out. And when you're not standing out, you're more likely to be looked over. So does this mean Australian filmmakers of today are more afraid than the seemingly bolder visionaries of the past? I don't think so, but I suspect that cinema has become more of a business today. And like all businesses, taking a risk also means taking a gamble on making money. And this leads into developing ideas that will ensure that gamble is as low as possible to actually be in production.
Are you looking for exciting new movies with unique storylines and characters with real depth? Well, too bad. Rather than waste our time and effort exploring new ideas or telling original stories, we're just rehashing the same movies you've already seen.
Unlike countries such as the US, funding a film in Australia typically involves the government, and if the Australian government interprets projects that are not likely to be commercially viable, it won't risk doing so. To have any film funded, there are codes and regulations to follow, and the film needs to present something that demonstrates commercial viability while also significantly contributing to Australian culture. More risk, less commercial viability. This could be why in 2019 a film called Spin Out was released, which told a love story centered in the world of ute driving.
This isn't driving around in circles, ladies and gentlemen. This is driving around in circles really, really fast. Buckle up, Sparrow. Here we go.
Any questions?
Or the film Go-Karts in 2020, which is self-described as a thrilling family film about a young boy who must overcome the odds in the world of go-kart racing.
So, been bitten by the racing bug.
Is that when you can't stop thinking about how much of a rush it is?
And finally, the film Combat Wombat.
And we're back live in Sanctuary City, where an unidentified sugar glider is unable to glide to safety.
Ah! Somebody do something!
Is there anything you want to say to the animals of Sanctuary City?
Yeah, I'm going back to bed.
What the hell was that?
Yes, I'm cherry-picking a few examples, and again, I'm not saying that any of these films are bad, and if you genuinely like them, that's more than fine by me. But what I am saying is that these films don't feel like they live up to the potential of what could be, nor take huge risks in their story. And this might explain their poor box office performance. Because as it stands right now, these films barely scratch $1 million, which is sadly the reality for almost all the Australian films released in the past decade. The top Australian films that do break this ceiling are movies like Thor or Elvis, Hollywood productions that just happen to be made in Australia. For over 35 years running, Crocodile Dundee has been the biggest Australian film in history. A love story, yes, but one that takes risk with both comedy and adventure in the Outback and New York City. Thus, it feels like a lifetime ago since movies in Australia were able to make such breakout hits like this. But I know that they all came from taking creative chances from passionate filmmakers who typically came outside the system but were willing to take risks to make their work memorable. While playing it safe might seem like the most commercially viable thing to do, often it's actually the worst thing you can do commercially. And when the system is set up by guidelines to preserve such commercial integrity, to ensure taxpayers' funds are best spent in a way that aims to make a profit, instead of focusing on taking creative risks, you choose to focus on being safe and creating a collection of films that all blend into each other. They all become a safe bet, and they all become forgettable. Risk is what's lacking, but it's also risk that's needed. The boldness of the past is what's required for the future. And as filmmakers, we stand on the shoulders of giants before us. We should be inspired to continue pushing the envelope further so that we can create projects that do not play it safe, but instead show the world something they've never seen before in a way that demands their attention. We can do things now with technology that was only a dream of the past. So to take no risk is to waste what we have today. So as much as I love Crocodile Dundee, surely it's about time that something recent can overtake that top spot.
You sure? No, I'm not sure. But I'll never know unless I give it a shot. I was jealous as all hell. Shit. Raccoon time again.
Bye! Don't forget to ride!
See ya! Wish I was staying. Bye! Take care of it now. Bye! Yeah, see ya, Ralph!
I've been cheated by you since I don't know where.
Donk, tonight's me lucky night.
You want to have a bit of the gun?
Oh, here's a go, fellas. Good on you, mate. Bye, mate. Come on. He's going to put the money on me.
Put your money on me.
I'm sorry, he's not normally like this. I do apologise. It's just the drink.
You mean there's a serious side to him?